Agentic AI is going to be the next big thing. I feel like we are getting a bit bored of saying that because the first big thing was AI as a whole, then it became generative AI, then it became multimodal AI, and now we've got agentic AI. But agentic AI really is the turning point when it comes to this emerging technology. And the reason being is agentic AI is now essentially enabling you to create agents, operators that can actually do tasks for you.
Hi guys, I'm Tim, the CEO of CDIO International, and I'm sitting down with some of the greatest minds in orthodontics across partners, our internal subject matter experts, and some of the clinicians to really show you what is happening in the space, where we're going, and if there is one thing that you should be focusing on, what it is and why. AI. Is it a buzzword? Is it a fad? Or should you actually be listening to what some of these people have to say about it? A lot of our doctors are asking us questions around AI. How do they use it? Is it important? Will it actually change their orthodontic practice? We sit down, debunk, and have some of the real conversations about what is important and what is, quite frankly, noise. So, to anybody watching or listening, so who are you? Where are you from? What's your history?
Oh, God. Okay, so I'm Lora. I am Global Digital Director here at TIO.
For now.
I've been here, just shy of 7 years?
It's been that long.
I think it's been that long.
Wow.
I think it's 7 years in November, this coming November. So, 7 years. I live in rural Essex, formerly an Oxfordian. And I've been in digital pretty much all my professional life. I've worked very, very closely in different verticals and niches. Most recently, obviously, orthodontics, but prior to that, I was in legal, I was in automotive. So I've kind of spanned some different industries and learnt very much about the nuances. And orthodontics is no different. I think it's very, it can be very complex in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Let's say the next iteration of Lora, because there's been a evolution of Lora over the last 12, 18 months, I would say. You've tackled some really big personal goals and had some huge achievements. You've had another child as well, slightly more than 12 months, but huge change whilst you've been a complete boss in a global role. And then on top of that, you have the crazy idea of going, I'm going to become an AI specialist and get a qualification in AI.
Yes. What do we say? I like to pile my plate high, shall we say. But I think for me, it was when I came back off maternity. So I had Etty in late 2022, and it was in 2023, July time, I think. And AI was just starting to really bubble up in the surface. And I thought, what is this all about? So I had a play around with ChatGPT, which was kind of the first, I guess we can call it the OG large language model. And I had a play around. I was like, crikey, this can really do stuff. And at that point, it was all about text generation, so building out content and whatnot. And then I thought, well, no, I want to see what else it can do. So I actually asked it, I prompted it to start building me out a presentation on AI that would be specific to orthodontic practices and how they can use it moving forward. And normally, you know what I'm like, when it comes to actually writing any kind of conference content or webinar content, I take weeks. I'm very, very meticulous. I'm quite banal about certain things. And it did this in 5 minutes, and it created this really beautiful structure that literally I was so shocked at just how on the nail it could be from such a simple prompt. And I realised, oh my gosh, this is going to absolutely implode. Which is then when I reached out and said, you know what, I need to learn more about this. I need to understand the intricacies of it. I need to know the inner workings, because ultimately, in order for us to really jump on this and enable us as a business, but also our members to really grow with this, I'm going to need to understand it. So yes, I seeked out a course which I thought was going to be quite suitable for what we do in terms of AI in marketing, in digital, and how we can really adapt that for our practices.
So you spent 8 months studying this in a chaotic time.
Very much so, working along my day-to-day role with at that point, a 12-month-old and a 4-year-old who was due to go to school at that point. And I came out the other side and ended up with what they considered to be a degree equivalent certificate in AI.
Nice. I imagine in the world of AI, that's kind of redundant because it changes not to say your degree is redundant, right? But in terms of, I'm sure the methodology and all of that, but it moves so quick is what I'm saying, right? So ChatGPT 5 dropped this week, and it is already, they say it's the biggest update because it's, all of the benchmarks are completely different, and you look at, this is going to completely change things also, they say, right? But since then, not only have you moved with the pace of it, you have teamed up with some of the leading experts in the AI space globally. You've spoken on the shores in Australia and all around the world, in terms of AI workshops to our member base, but also looking outside of just orthodontics, right? Because orthodontics, whilst it is very innovative in patient care and those sorts of things, sometimes it can actually be a lagging industry, and there is a very valid reason as to why, because medical regulation, exactness, patient care, anytime any of that comes into question, they will make sure it is peer reviewed and approved, and that's why we have FDA, all of those sorts of elements as well. So often a fast adopter but a slow adopter. It's a weird mix sometimes, yes. Right? So I love the fact that you went outside of orthodontics to work out what did the blueprint need to be, because it didn't exist. It wasn't just scaling or replicating or doing what we knew needed to happen in the industry, right? Talk me through why you did that and what was the thought process.
So I think you're right in the first instance that actually, yes, learning about AI and getting a certification in it is great, but as you say, that's just for the fundamentals, because everything else is moving at such a pace that, I've said it time and time again, by the time I've written a piece of content or done a webinar talking about the latest innovations in AI, 2 weeks later it's out of date. You cannot reuse that content because it is moving so fast.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that I wanted to go out of industry to do this is because it didn't exist at that point in the industry. There was no AI specific course that you could do that was relative to orthodontics, but also because when you think about the digital space, when it comes to such a new emerging technology like this, you want to understand how you can pull in different ways, because it's not that we're siloed in orthodontics, but we have a specific blueprint, as you said. We know what works best, and I'm talking about this from a marketing lens perspective. We know what works, but we don't know what doesn't work if we haven't yet built it or tested it. So it was more about understanding, okay, well, what else is possible? Because ultimately, when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to large language models, when it comes to generative AI, multimodal AI, anything is really possible. So it's about being able to, have a hypothesis, test it, work it out, trial it, fix it.
Build and tame the beast.
Hugely.
Yeah.
So I think that is the reason why that ultimately it wasn't, there was nothing really available to us from a marketing sense. Clinically, obviously, AI has been around for a number of years in terms of the way that we're starting to use AI to help understand, malocclusions and the more orthodontic clinical space, but nothing really in terms of the efficiencies that we can make in practice. Marketing, digital.
Administration.
Absolutely.
Nice. And before we break that down, because I do absolutely want to do that and talk about, AI, this big theoretical thing.
Yes.
You mentioned generative AI, LLMs, jargon.
Buzzwords, yeah, absolutely,
yeah. Let's unpack that a little bit. LLM.
Large language model.
Meaning?
So your large language models, and I'll put this in layman terms because you can kind of go really, you can unpeel the onion, but ultimately these are your core systems that people use on the day-to-day. So think ChatGPT, Google Gemini, DeepSeek, Perplexity, Claude. All of those are large language models. And essentially what they are built on is reams and reams of data and machine learning that helps them understand all of our history, all of our nuances in terms of, so it uses streams and reams of data, all from everything that's been scraped from websites, books, people, interviews, webinars, every kind of audio transcript, videos. It basically is a massive encyclopedia and dictionary of information. And essentially what it does is everyone seems to think that it kind of is already created the text that it has when you prompt it. So say, for example, I say, hey, I need to write a webinar about the latest update in ChatGPT. They think that that's already behind the scenes and it's gone back and it's saying, ChatGPT, search the web for that, got it, great, here you go. No, what's actually happening is it is working out from the machine learning that it's had previously, so every single character in terms of what is the best possible probability of what you need it to say. And what I mean by that is every single output that a large language model gives you has never, ever been outputted before. Because essentially what it's got in the background is all of these different, they're called nodes, and they're all categorized in very, very complex manners, very simplistic manners. So, for example, the large language model knows that a cat can be associated to a Persian. It can be associated to a mammal. It can be associated to a dog as a household pet, so on and so forth. So it's basically looking at the next most plausible and probable answer to give you.
So does it go in through the nodes and come back out? And
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
That is essentially what it is in a more technical sense. But ultimately, a large language model is a generative AI platform that can give you outputs in different formats.
Yeah.
The most, I guess the one that it's been built on and probably the most used use case for it is text, generative text. But you've also now got multimodal. So it can generate audio, it can generate visual, it can now start to generate video. It can.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, in the most simple terms, is what a large language model is.
Yep. Okay. Agentic AI, why is it important and why is it changing orthodontics?
Agentic AI is going to be the next big thing. I feel like we are getting a bit bored of saying that because the first big thing was AI as a whole, then it became generative AI, then it became multimodal AI, and now we've got agentic AI. But agentic AI really is the turning point when it comes to this emerging technology. And the reason being is agentic AI is now essentially enabling you to create agents, operators that can actually do tasks for you. Whereas before, the biggest use case for AI was creating content, doing review responses, creating social media posts. It was very, I don't want to say rudimentary, but it was. Whereas now, actually, what you can start to build out is processes that don't have to be touched by a human at any point other than the end for QA or at the very beginning when you're building them out. That's what agentic AI is. It is robotic machine learning to create a process from the start to the end that you have built initially, but it can then execute itself overall, and it can be multi-stage as well. So a really good example of this is, and I'll use something out of the industry, you build an operator, an agent, where on a daily basis, it goes out for you, it goes and searches the web for the cheapest flights to Malta. It then comes back and it works out the cheapest one, it works out the times and dates. It will then look at your diary to see if those times and dates suit. If it does, it can actually book those flights for you or reserve those flights for you. That is a very, very simplistic flow of what agentic AI or an AI agent can do.
No, I love it. Does that mean in an orthodontic practice, we are at the turning point of where we can get rid of all of our staff and basically use agents for everything?
See, I've heard this a lot, and this has been one of the key things that a lot of practices have said, is that actually with AI, they're not going to need any kind of administrative staff, treatment coordinators, well, they're redundant now. Hey, who needs, people that actually do the admin-based work for them? Agentic AI is great for streamlining processes, actually looking at where your time sucks are in a practice and really alleviating that pressure away from you. But the biggest thing that I'm starting to see is that there are all of these emerging new services. So you've got, you've got platforms where actually you've now got a medical transcriber. So the likes of Otter AI is one of them, Heidi.
Yeah.
There are, I think, probably in the tens of hundreds now, if not. You've got those ones. You've then got these ones saying that they can do all of your social posts for you. So you've got another platform that can do this. And they can, some of them are quite rudimentary, some of them are using agentic AI. They are great, but the problem that you're going to start to see is that you have 10, 15, 20 different AI platforms, all doing different things for you.
And who's managing those?
Exactly. And I think the key thing here is that orchestration piece. You need to have an orchestrator actually navigating these platforms in terms of What's working best for you? You can't just enable these to go out and do their own thing. Yes, it's possible, but you're then having to check this one platform to see what it's doing there, check that app to make sure it's doing what it's meant to be doing here. It's very, very disjointed. And the whole reason that you'd want to use agentic AI is to streamline and merge all of your different workflows into one key place. That's the real key. And I think a lot of people are starting to lose sight of that because the next big thing's just launched. Oh, we need to jump on top of that. That's not the reason that you should be using AI in your practice. It should be there to help streamline, and certainly not getting rid of those people that actually make the cogs turn in your practice.
So what are the most underrated ways orthodontic practices can start using AI today without needing developers, big investment, those sorts of things?
I think actually probably the most overlooked, and I'm staying with the OG platform here, which, well, actually, no, we're not married to any large language model. This could be Google Gemini, this could be ChatGPT, but I think the one thing that is so underrated and actually helps massively are custom GPTs and Google Gems. And the reason being is I see so many practices going in and re-prompting whichever large language model they're using to, refine this patient letter for me, respond to this review for me, do X, do Y. And
you spend more time re-prompting than actually than if you just wrote it. Yeah.
And the iterations that they have to do. Oh, you've left M dashes in there. Oh no, we're UK English, we're not American English. These custom GPTs essentially allow you to create almost your own mini large language model inside the larger language model. They enable you to input exactly what you want it to do, the tone of voice. You can give it knowledge files so it can actually refer back to something rather than you having to reattach that file in question every single time. I think they're really underrated because ultimately you're not having to do any custom coding. We're not getting involved in Python here. We're not having to go to GitHub to do any kind of, pull or push of any kind of code. You're still using the simplistic format of ChatGPT and Google Gems. You're just having to prompt in a slightly different way in the back end. But then as a result of that, you don't have to do it again. Those for me I would recommend to any practice, if you've not looked at them yet, to have a look at custom GPTs, large language models. Most of them have it. Google Gemini have its Gems, custom GPTs, and I believe that Claude and Perplexity have now just launched their own as well. Those for me, absolutely key.
AI and marketing. It's disrupted the space.
Hugely.
Massively, continues to do so. Every big player in the space is now trying to bring they're closing off systems that used to be open-ended systems to try and protect and then develop their own. Everybody wants to own a piece of the AI space, right?
Definitely.
And that fragmentation and that competition and that dramatic shift in many respects. You look at Meta now having their own management platforms through AI, but closing off that information feed from other things in certain verticals. And, that's hit orthodontics in one of them massively quite recently. So the landscape it's been volatile since COVID, right? Let's face it. What was a norm before and what was consistent was no longer consistent. And that just became business as usual and normal. But the disruption's continuing to happen and happen and happen, right? And the byproduct of that is these methodologies that have worked, tried, tested, replicable before are no longer sufficient. Or viable.
Yep.
And people are looking around and going, well, what's the solution? But also not wanting to go through the test, trial, error, break, fail, fall, fail fast, and then a nugget will come. What's your take on that with the whole marketing mix? Is that accurate, or would you say is it that dramatic, or is that noise?
I think in some instances it rings true. I do believe, as you alluded to earlier, the whole meta piece has been a huge disruptor because we are considered as orthodontic practices to be in the health and wellness space, clinical, and that then automatically almost puts us in this pool where there's a lot more red tape. So I believe with meta, I think it has disrupted it hugely. We're still trying to ascertain when it comes to the whole meta debacle, what actually is the best route forward? Because as you say, that's now, in terms of the data that we were originally getting fed through from Meta to the websites to understand, oh, okay, this is working in terms of the ad creative, so on and so forth. That's been completely severed. So now what we're trying to work out is how can we still yield that data, still have that data and still learn from it. That's proven to be really difficult. There are other instances. So, for example, the search landscape, when it comes to SEO, there has been huge dramatization around this.
Okay.
In terms of the fact that the entire landscape's changing. It's been, the world is shifting under our feet. Large language models, which is ultimately going to be the biggest disruptor in search, they work off vastly the same algorithms as what our traditional search engines do. So Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, all of those OG search engines, they have a specific search algorithm to understand and work out whose website is best placed to rank high.
Because it has to be on relevance, right? Like,
Exactly.
you don't want to serve irrelevant stuff. So it's got to pull similar factors of relevancy, just regurgitating it in a different way, in a different format, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to that relevancy, how would an algorithm ascertain that you are more relevant than somebody else?
I literally did this last night, just playing around, right?
Oh, okay.
So I was like, right, what are the top orthodontists near me? I love to do this in every city that I go to, because sometimes I get told, sorry, search team, I do really value your opinion and understand it, but I will also test it, as I love to do, to just debunk anything in my life, right?
I love this.
So, like, if you tell me that I'm not targeted because I'm not in the demographic or I'm not in the area, well, I am in the demographic because of my age. I am in the area now, and I am going to look and I'm going to see how we fare and how our competitors fare and all those sorts of things as well, right?
Absolutely.
We fared very well, so
Good
well
to
done,
know.
team.
Good to know.
But I asked the LLM, what sources did you use to pull this, right? What factors do you look at? And it was all the stuff that we're looking at from SEO. I mean, it's all earned. A lot of it is earned, right? And it has to be authoritative. And this is where I think there is a huge opportunity for specialists now, because you have a unique thing to feed and to educate and to tell people and the LLM, whereas before it was like a keyword. And I'll never forget the session that you did where I think you or Tim, and it was around, you don't just walk around barking keywords at people. Orthodontist, near me, price.
Yeah.
You just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just,
Cheap braces.
Yeah, cheap braces.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're looking at the questioning and the phrase matching and all that kind of stuff now, that is even more important when you're looking at it from an SEO perspective, right? And I know you have massively built out a product and spent 12 months of your life really getting deep into this. So I'm not going to sit here in the weeds. But I couldn't agree more with you. I think that it is, yes, there's a couple of other factors to consider,
Of course.
but it hasn't, like, no-click search and all that kind of stuff, 100% agree with all of this. But at the same time, it doesn't rip up the foundation of everything that it has been built upon, because that's in no one's interest. It's not even in Google's interest. It's not in ChatGPT's interest. It's in nobody's interest to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head. And I think that's where it's almost we're having to try and pull back, because yes, we always want to be at the forefront of this digital space.
Yeah.
But it's noise in the sense of, actually, it was funny because I was trying to work out what people are going to start to call this new revolution. So obviously we've got SEO, search engine optimization, and there's been loads being batted around. AIO, artificial intelligence optimization.
LLMO.
Exactly. We were going to be getting really quite, like, there's going to be some really nuanced abbreviations of it. But ultimately, what are you doing in ChatGPT when you're prompting? You're searching.
Yeah.
You are searching. It's still the foundations of search. And when you actually look at it, as you say, a lot of it is earned. But okay, so what's earned in the search space? Reviews? You know, sorry to get to it, but backlinks, you know, are you actually filtering out content? As you say, you've got a USP, you are a specialist orthodontist. Are you starting to actually shout about that? Are you giving more relevant information? Are you
publishing peer-reviewed journals in, you know, the JCO? And if so, why? Because that's highly reputable, and therefore it will say relevancy matched, you know, like, 100%.
It's all about topical authority, but then it also has the same foundations. You know, content is king, but there's also a few technical aspects that you would need to do on your website, and that's obviously one thing that we take care of. I think for me, going back to the original question, there are things that are going to really, really unsettle the space. And I feel like SEO is being unsettled, but also I think a lot of it is being dramatized for the clicks, if I'm honest, you know, and for it's clickbait. 0-click search, absolutely that's happening, but Google's not going away anytime soon. And also 0-click search was pretty much rising 7, 8, 9 years ago when Google business profiles were launched, because ultimately that is your own space on the Google real estate as it is already. So I think it's going to disrupt the script for a lot of different elements within marketing, but some have been over-egged, I feel, definitely.
So would you say would it be fair to say then that rather it being AI disrupting the performance and the marketing mix as much, it's other factors in terms of higher competition, in ad auctions, like you can't just cheat the system anymore like you used to be able to, right? Like you could game it. The good old days, right?
Old days where you used to
turn on this old mentality of turn on the tap.
Yeah, literally.
Right?
Yeah.
The old tap isn't turning.
No.
It don't exist anymore.
No,
Do you know?
Gone.
Or it does exist. Let me correct that. It exists, but you have to have done the work first.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to connect a pipe to it.
100%.
Got the well actually sorted and filled up with water before it could turn on.
Exactly. Otherwise, we're turning on a tap that's got no water source. Yeah. And I think that's the bit that people aren't understanding. We used to be able to do that. Like, loved those days.
Yes.
But that was paid media in every sense, in every vertical, right? And now, with the relevancy stuff, and this is where TIO, SEO on the whole, all of those authority-earned stuff, like you can't now cheat the system.
No.
And that's the bit, because before you could whack up a landing page, whack on an ad, and hey presto, you got starts. Like, it doesn't work like that anymore. Like, I wish it did, but unfortunately, rather than fighting and thinking we're going back there, we have to shift and we have to adapt and we have to change those.
Have to pivot,
100%, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what is your take on where we pivot? Where do you think people should go?
I think we're already starting to do it. So you mentioned obviously the good old days, and that was very much the fact that you could put a landing page up. I mean, crikey, even, you know, if we go into the whole black hat days of where you used to have a website and on the page you could literally keyword stuff all of the keywords that you wanted and then just put them in white so they just couldn't be found.
Yeah.
I think the issue that we're starting to see now is that with especially paid media is actually the same principles still exist and they're still there, but because of the insurgence of AI, what we're now starting to see is actually Google's becoming smarter with regards to, your ad rank's not going to be X anymore because our machine learning's starting to realize that, you know, you're doing this or you're not doing this. So we're not going to really rank you up as high as we used to be, or your cost per click's going to be more expensive. I think what practices need to be aware of is that, as you said, it's not a magical tap anymore. You have to look at the whole stack, the whole marketing mix. So if you are really quite, if you are leaning on your paid media, well, actually, start to look elsewhere. What is your earned media looking like? Are your social profiles actually up to scratch? Crikey, you've now got generative AI that's able to do 99% of the work for you. If you're not posting more regularly than normal, start to actually build that.
And what are you actually saying? It can't just be...
It can't be drivel.
100%. And I think that's the big shift in the consumer sentiment. People are aware of ads now, right?
Yes.
Like, you're so aware because it was so saturated and it was rammed down your throat, right? And we're not just talking orthodontic industry. I come paid media background, right? Like, it was the heyday, but people became immune. And what people fundamentally overlook is if people become immune to your ad space, you put yourself in the shoes of Google.
Yep.
You put yourself in the shoes of Facebook. They're monetizing your eyeballs. That's how they make their money, right? by being relevant, keeping people on the platform, and then able to sell advertising space. That is it.
Yeah,
if you're not paying for it, you're being sold.
Yeah.
Like, that hasn't changed, right? So anything that threatens the survival, the relevancy, the engagement of that, they will shift and they will penalize out. Do you know what I mean? And we might not see that as poor relevancy, but I'm sure on the biggest data sets in the world, they didn't just make a decision and wake up. Like, it'd all be built on that, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's almost a bit of a comeuppance. And for practices who are actually good at what they do, who actually want to educate, who actually want to be specialists and the best in their field, this is a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
If you lean into it properly and you do the right thing instead of the lazy route, which I'm sorry to call a spade, but, like, of course, if you said to me you could do little and get lots, you would take it. But that's off the table now.
Exactly.
Do you know? And I think
completely.
Yeah, and I think that's the big mindset shift that people aren't getting. Or maybe we're not articulating clear enough. Do you know what I mean? I think there's one of two bits of that, because that is a seismic shift. That is us effectively going, what we told you to do for 10 years, can't do it anymore, need to do completely different. And hey, the new way is going to take a hell of a lot more of your time because it's now a return on effort instead of a return on investment.
Yeah,
and that's quite hard to A, convey, but B, to swallow
absolutely,
in a soft market.
Hugely, yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think in terms of, it was always, I don't want to say the easy way out, but I think what's actually starting to happen now is earned media, you really do have to earn. Whereas before,
because average is easy now. So
exactly, it's that elevation now.
Yeah.
And I think actually, it's just reiterating what we've been saying for, as many years as we've both been here. You have to be on top of your game. And yes, we can, there's certain things that we can do in the mix. But if you're not doing it on the other side, then it's just not, it's going to break. And I think you mentioned about the fact that the consumer piece as well, especially on social media, ironically enough, the one thing that we are becoming more attuned to as consumers is AI. In terms of, I said earlier about the fact that we don't want to use M dashes in our content, because everyone knows as soon as you see an M dash in a piece of content, it's generated by AI.
Yeah, you switch off, don't you?
You do. Yeah. So I think it's almost, again, looking at this whole spectrum of AI, you have to use it with such balance. Because ultimately, the authenticity piece is probably going to be the one thing that you can go over and above your competitors. You can spurt out as much generated AI content as you want. But if it's not nuanced to you, if it's not specific, if it's not got any of your...
of value.
Exactly. Then
quality
it's just
over quantity.
Hugely.
So if I could summarize that, AI is making quantity easy.
Yes, it's the quality.
But quality is still what is going to cut through.
Absolutely.
But quality is hard.
Quality is hard.
With every aspect of life, quality is hard. Yeah.
Absolutely.
AI tools.
Yes.
What is one AI tool that you can absolutely not live without today, and why?
Oh, I feel like I almost feel a bit of a sellout when I say this, because it's probably the easiest answer, but I will be honest. I am married to ChatGPT. I have tried every other platform in terms of Google Gemini. I've tried 1.5 Pro, the Gems. I've had a play around on DeepSeek. For me, the reason that I like ChatGPT is it's the one that I cut my teeth on when it came to AI. It's the one that I actually really learnt upon, and I've almost grown with it. And the reason that I always go back to it, and it's one that I cannot live without, I now have 7 or 8 different agents on there. My sandbox is there. I've basically cloned myself into custom GPTs, into projects. I have linked all of my documentation that I've got. It's basically become Lora Nash-Legrys' large language model. If I was to lose that, I would lose a hell of a lot of knowledge and a hell of a lot of previous iterations of trialing, of testing, of breaking things, of saying so many different profanities to this poor thing. I've called it Nico, by the way. My ChatGPT is called Nico.
Why Nico?
I don't know. I just feel like it suits him. And it's a him as well. But yes, he's Nico. And he's ever so polite to me. But, I have gone through, and I do almost feel like he is slightly humanized now, because every single bit in terms of what we've been building now as a business, in terms of looking inwardly and working out where we can make efficiencies, to the point where I've had to work out, how to build a technology stack from the ground up. Everything actually started within ChatGPT, because he understands what we're trying to achieve in terms of, again, he understands what we're trying to achieve in terms of the objectives. He understands our current stack. He understands what I need him to learn and to tell me what to do. So for me, I know it's almost like a bit of a fake out answer, but it is ChatGPT. And I'm sure there are other people that use Tim Martin, you mentioned earlier, who's obviously one of our speakers that
Shout out, Tim.
Very, very close with, a fantastic man. He absolutely adores Google Gemini. He adores 1.5 Pro. He loves the sandbox element there. He can do far more based on his use cases. For me, what I'm trying to achieve is I'm trying to make things scalable for our practices. So whatever we do internally, we can then scale out to them and they can then implement. Now, actually, when you look at it from a scalable perspective, what is going to be the most scalable large language model platform, system that we can use is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. Are there any risks or misconceptions that the ortho world currently have about AI or need to be aware of, in your opinion?
We touched upon it earlier, and I think it's that it can do everything. I think that don't want to say many of our practices, but some practices have seen AI as this answer to everything.
Yeah.
And it can fix everything. And whilst that's true in some cases, again, we go back to the fact that you can use AI and you can build out, you can build out all these different processes and workflows, and you can use different platforms for different things. But unless you are bringing that all together and you have some form of orchestration, it will be disjointed. It will actually cause more work in the long run. There have been many a time when I've had conversations with doctors and with teams where they're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do this. We've built out this entire new process, and actually it's going to do this part of our admin workflow. And then we've got this, we've just, got a subscription for this platform, and it's going to do this for us. And actually, when you break it down, you realise that you've caused more work, because ultimately
cost
as well. And I think that for me is the biggest risk and misconception. And one thing I want people to really take on is that actually, yes, AI is fantastic. And believe me, working in the inner weeds of it, what it can do is brilliant, but you have to be very wary of what you're trying to achieve with it, because you can get carried away. And then you sit back and you're like, right, okay, yes, I've I've automated this process, but I've had to use 5 different things to make it work. And as a result of that, 3 different people have to look at it. So I think it's ultimately that, yes, it's a brilliant tool, but it cannot do everything. You still need that human touch.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier. I think it was last night. You spoke about there was a case study.
Oh, the one with the patient's
Yes.
response? Yeah.
And I think that's really key to say, actually, yes, large language models and generative AI output can be fantastic. And for the most part, it is pretty undetectable. But when you actually put it up against a human, a real specialist, the human still comes out on top. And I think that's one thing we have to take home with us, is that whatever we do with AI, yes, it can be brilliant, but it's never going to be, and I kind of feel bad, it's never going to be as good as a human that could really specialise in that can do.
100%. Right. So another case example of this as well. For those of you who weren't aware, Laura was referring to a case study that was done in America. So it was where they benched customer communication, or patient communication, I should say, across a series of 15 questions. And they were basically the most standard FAQs that people had when they went through treatment, right? And then they used the AAO's response to those, which is highly, qualified, reputable. They set the standard in America. And basically the responses that came from that website versus the responses that specialists would actually have said. So they recorded what those answers would be from these specialists. Right. And then they recorded the answers across Copilot and ChatGPT asking the question, no prompts, no context, no nothing, and it giving them a response. And the way that it benched was really interesting. Like GPT did way better than Copilot. Copilot actually was the third, in it underperformed versus the other two. And exactly as you said, the human came out on top from a patient perspective. But there were actually a couple of instances on a few of those 15 questions, which I thought was really interesting, where ChatGPT or the LLM made it more accessible to the patient.
From a readability perspective.
Readability and accessibility, right? Because the specialist overwhelmed them. So there is a place, do you know what I mean? But actually it's not replacing that, because you still are needed, but actually is there a qualification lens? Is there another way? You just have to totally look at how you're looking at it differently, right?
Hugely.
But it's not a plug and play solution. I think that's what people have a huge misconception. Yeah. I'm going to take Mr. AI, Nico, plug him into my practice, presto, job done. And it could not be further from the truth.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's great that people want to play with it. It's been around for ages. Dental monitoring, you look at all of this kind of stuff, long time in the industry. I think that it will get there. I 100% agree, but I feel like we are here at the let's say out of 100, we're at step 3, and people want to be at stage 100.
Yeah.
And the reality is we're going to end up around stage 25 and be lucky to do that in the next sort of 12 months or so, I reckon.
I would say so, yeah. But that's still a huge jump from 3 to 25 within 20.
The efficiencies, these sorts of things, but this is where it's like pick 2 things, lean deep into it and get it right. Do you know, I think that's the difference, is everybody's coming out with an AI thing and an AI support and an agent that's going to do this and an agent that's going to do that.
Yeah,
and it's great. Like it's awesome, but at the same time, overwhelm and then overwhelm freeze is going to be a really big thing that will hit the industry as a result of that, I think. And that's where people like yourself who can distill it, take it down, what is noise, what is important. And that's why I know our roadmaps are built around actually understanding the problem, finding the solution, and then once that is bedded and sticky and proven, then replication and scaling. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think that this scattergun approach is really going to, a lot of people aren't going to end up where they think they're going to end up or want to end up.
Agreed. Yes, agreed. I think, like you say, in terms of that disjointedness across those platforms. But again, it's that trial and testing and failure and just working out what's right. But I think, to go back to the original question, that's really what we all have to be wary of. You know, when I originally started, I was jumping on everything. And then I realised actually I was spreading myself really thinly and actually spending more time trying to work out what to do on this system, when actually if I was just orchestrating and using something that I knew already that could do it, I just had to build it. It can become quite complex and quite disjointed. So I think that is just the one thing we have to be wary when it comes to any new technology.
And I think people overlook or don't even consider the fact of when you list tasks, you need to look at complexity of automation of that task.
Hugely.
And is the task actually already repeatable enough to automate? Do you know, so how you look at where you start with automation, how deep you go in the task mining element side of those sorts of things. All of this terminology that has existed for a long time, right? There are huge businesses out there that do this for banks and for, all of these things, and have for decades. Yes, the task mining can be done more remotely and all these sorts of things, and that's moved forward. But this kind of understanding of complexity of AI and automation is a real big gap, I think, and a lot of people are saying they'll fix the problem, but how many things have gone, we've tried this and we did this, but it didn't work, so we turned it off. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, if I had £1, $1, whatever, for every time I've heard that recently from an orthodontic practice, like, you're spending time, money, effort when resourcing is already an issue on something that is potentially a wing and a prayer. And I'm not saying it's not the right thing to be doing, but align with the right people and focus in on the right things that have a true possibility of being automated and make a difference for you.
Yes.
For everybody to expect to become an AI specialist in an orthodontic practice is a pretty obscene expectation.
It's a big stretch.
Yeah.
But then that's also what we're
here to
gearing
do.
To do. We are really starting to look at actually those inner workings of a practice and what, as you say, understanding what tasks can be automated, what can be repetitive, what doesn't need that human implementation to actually enable it to be fully automated using things like AI. And that's what we're really starting to do. We're starting to look inwardly first and understand, okay, actually, there are manual tasks or tasks that are done repetitively on a daily basis. Well, where can we take that out? Where's that time suck? Where is the manual element that we can remove? And again, it's not about looking at it from an admin perspective in the heads. It's more about, well, actually, what's going to give us more time to do other things strategically.
And I think 100% you talk about this, you talk about experience. So that's going to be a differentiator, right? So 100% always has been, always will be. I don't care what anybody says, whether that's digital experience, humans buy from humans, and they will continue to, right? Yes. Convenience is important and systems and processes help with that. But you're freeing them up. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. Earning real estate now in a digital sense requires effort. It cannot just be a quick switch on win. Do you know? Where's that effort going to come from? It's not going to come from the orthodontist that's still treating, on 4 clinical days a week and, and nobody else can do that.
Yeah.
So freeing up these people to redistribute, to do that, it's not, I don't think it's going to just drop headcount. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not.
No.
Understandably, you might shift in the way that that's geared up, but just like a dental monitoring champion, right, has to exist and has to be there. They're just not chairside anymore.
Exactly.
Do you know?
Their use case just kind of will potentially switch.
Yeah. That's all we've got time for today. Make sure you subscribe and stay ahead of the curve. We'll be dropping a new episode of Tim Talks every month. Thanks for listening.